acquisitions. So under mergers and acquisitions, ladies and gentlemen, there are things that we must really be very good at. There are things we must really be very good at. If I were an examiner, if I was to be given a chance to test something small that I would always put down under valuation of mergers, under valuation of mergers, stroke acquisitions, you know, there are various methods, many methods really that you could use, many methods that you could make use of, many methods that you could make use of for you to be able to value a firm that you are acquiring. And some of them are really in the videos that I gave you. But at times you could go and get an examiner who wants you to use what we call the PE ratio method, who wants you to use the PE ratio method. You could easily get an examiner who wants you to use the PE ratio method to value an acquiree. And what they will do, these people here as an exercise, remember PE ratio stands for what here? Price earnings ratio. Price earnings ratio. So what they will do, they'll tell you in this case here that we have got an acquiree organization whose PE ratio is, for example, 0.7, whose PE ratio is 0.7. And then they'll tell you that the firm's total earnings in a year, is 10 million. And then you'll be required to get the value of the acquiree firm or the targeted firm I'm just repeating this. This is something that I did in our last class. Is there anybody who can give us the way forward? What do you think shall we do for us to be able to get the total firm value of the targeted company? Total firm value of the targeted company. Somebody talk to me. Before you talk to me, because I'm so sure that you guys are so busy typing there, the most important thing will be for us to remember the formula of PE ratio. To remember the formula of PE ratio, that our PE ratio equals what over what? Our PE ratio equals what over what? Our PE ratio equals what over what? Can somebody remind us? PE ratio equals MPS over the EPS. Thank you. Zamzam. No, it has to be price over earnings, not the other way around. It is price over earnings. So we have in this case here market price per share all over earnings per share. So when they tell us, ladies and gentlemen, when they tell us to value an organization, when they tell us to value an organization, they basically want us to make MPS the subject of the formula. They want us to make MPS the subject of the formula. So could you kindly try to make MPS the subject of the formula? So then this MPS here will be equal to PE ratio times what we call EPS. Times what we call EPS. But now, ladies and gentlemen, you see this is very good. You're valued one share of that company. But these people want you to ascertain the total value. So how do you get the total value? To get the total firm value, whenever you have got market price per share, to get the total value, you'll need to take the market price per share times number of ordinary shares. So meaning, ladies and gentlemen, that you must come here and introduce what we call the nose. For equality to hold, you must also introduce the nose on this other side. So when I take the nose, which is number of ordinary shares times MPS, when I take the nose, number of ordinary shares times MPS, here I'll be getting what we call total value. Total firm value, total firm value, or what some books will be calling market capitalization, market capitalization, market capitalization like that, market capitalization like that. And then, ladies and gentlemen, look at this other side. When you take earnings per share times number of ordinary shares, what do you get? I get what I'll be calling the total earnings of the firm, the total earnings of the firm. I'll get what we call the total earnings of the firm. I'll get what we call the total earnings of the firm. So could you kindly talk to me? Are we together up to here? 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 Ah, great, great, great. I can see very many yeses. So in short, what are we saying? Nobody will tell you to derive these. In short, what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is quite a simple thing. In short, what I'm saying here is that, anytime you want to get the total firm value, you'll be taking, in this case here, the PE ratio that you have times the total earnings of the firm. Just that, total earnings of the firm. So the PE ratio given here, was it 0.7? I wrapped mine. The PE ratio is 0.7 times the total earnings of the firm, which is 10 million. So then this will give us a value of how much? 7 million. So there is no way I will be able to give more than 7 million, for this organization. To acquire this organization, I can't give more than 7 million. 7 million becomes what here? Maximum. 7 million becomes maximum. And if you allow me, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be able to straight away just use this particular example that we have here to introduce another valuation method. Recall the earnings yield. The earnings yield method. So can somebody in this case here try these out for us? Who can give us the earnings yield formula? Earnings yield formula. Please give us the earnings yield formula. Thank you very much, Oscar. These guys have appreciated the fact that regardless of the formula they talk about, so long as they've mentioned that the word yield, normally we shall be having what we call market price per share per denominator. We shall be having what we call the market price per share per denominator. So long as wamesema earnings yield, we shall be having what we call market price per share. Yani wakisema, ukienda kwa exam, usikie examiner amesema dividend yield. Unafaa kujua kwamba kwa denominator, sababu ya jina yield, lazima kuwe na market price per what? Per share. Now listen and listen to me very well. When they talk of earnings yield, we know in the denominator we have MPS. But how about the numerator? Numerator, because it's an earnings yield, then here we shall have what we call EPS. That is a formula for getting earnings yield. And because, of course, they would want us to use this earnings yield method to get firm value, then please go ahead and make MPS the subject of the formula. Make MPS the subject of the formula. If I try making MPS the subject of the formula and I cross multiply, if you're no, I should keep quiet a little bit and see whether you guys will be able to do proper cross multiplications for you to make MPS the subject of the formula. I would want to hear what you're getting there as the MPS. Betty has already been able to bell the cat. Thank you very much. All of us are correct because on cross multiplication, we have earnings yield times MPS equals EPS. And if I try making MPS the subject, then it will be EPS over earnings yield. And if I was to introduce the no-cess concept, in both sides of the equal sign, what are we saying, ladies and gentlemen? What we are saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is quite a simple thing. That in short, for us to be able to get firm value, for me to be able to get firm value using this approach, I'll be taking the total earnings all over the earnings yield. So when I go to the acquisitions table, I'll ask them a very simple question. Do you guys know your earnings yield? Then they'll tell me, yeah, for sure we know the earnings yield of this company. We know, for example, that the earnings yield of this company is 0.5. And then now what I'll do is to ask for their income statement. Once I get access to the income statement, I look at the profitability. Specifically, I will look at the profit after tax. So the profit after tax is what I'll come and pick as my total earnings, assuming that the total earnings here are 10 million as well. Then I'll be able to get what we call farm value using the earnings yield. So I'll take the 10 million total earnings given divided by the earnings yield, which is 0.5. And then, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, I should be able to talk of 10 over 0.5. This gives me how much? Somebody. 10 over 0.5 will give me how much? Somebody. 10 over 0.5 will give me 20 million. And ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions experts, what they will do, they'll use various methods to get the acquiree's value. After they use various methods, now they'll be able to come up with a range. So the range in this case here becomes the subject of discussion, that when I go to this discussions table, I'll endeavor to give an offer price of, say, 40 million. Why? Because 40 million is falling within the relevant range, maybe between 20 million and 60 million. 40 million is falling within the relevant what here? The relevant range. So it will be very important for us, ladies and gentlemen, to always remember this, On the same breath, you will come and realize that some examiners will come and give you dividend yield. So we have here the dividend yield method. What they will do, they'll come and give you total earnings. Total earnings is 10 million. Then they will be able to give you the total dividend, the dividend payout ratio. Payout ratio is 0.4. And then they'll give you the dividend yield. The dividend yield, they'll give you the dividend yield of 0.5, like that, 0.5. So then you are required here to ascertain the farm value. So without me talking so many words, I would want to see whether the students will be able to get this farm value. Are there students who will be able to get this farm value? Are there students who will be able to get the farm value here without much words from Mwalimu? $20 million, 20 million, 20 million, 50 million from Robert Doty. Thank you. 8 million Gertrude, thank you very much. So the first thing that I'll do is to get the total dividends paid in that year. Total dividend paid in the year. I know dividend is normally paid from the earnings. It is 10 million times our payout ratio. That we got 10 million, but we only paid out 40%. So 10 million times 0.4, then that gives us 4 million as the total dividend that was paid. Out of the total dividend paid, ladies and gentlemen, then I'll be able to estimate the value of a farm using the dividends yield method. So in this case here, then the dividend, the farm value here will be equal to the total dividends all over dividend yield, which will be 4 million all over the dividend yield, which is 0.5, which will end up giving us how much? 8 million, which will end up giving us 8 million Kenya shillings. Is that all right? Is that okay? Great. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So can I rub this? Can I rub this? Can I rub this? Can I rub this? Now, the other area, because remember, mergers, acquisitions, ladies and gentlemen, is quite popular also in terms of the theoretical aspects. In terms of theoretical aspects, mergers and acquisitions, you always get 1 or 2 questions which are theoretical from this area. And some of those questions that normally keep on coming over and over again, some of them we discussed them in our last session, are questions to do with things like the regulatory framework. Like when we want to think of mergers, acquisitions, which case laws, right? Which statutes do you look up to, right? Oh, okay, great. Shall share. Now my person has come back today. My personal assistant has come back today. We expect to exceed your expectations, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. So like we have here, very important, I know you must have watched one of my videos on defensive tactics against a hostile takeover, against a hostile takeover, against a hostile predator, or against a hostile husband to be. Defensive tactics. Defensive tactics against a hostile takeover. Now, have you ever heard of this language anywhere? Hostile takeover. Hostile takeover. Hostile takeover. Is there anybody who has ever heard of a hostile takeover? Hostile takeover. Ndio kama ile miaka ya kitambo, mambo zetu za kitambo kabisa, forceful years. Ile miaka ya kitambo kabisa, ulikuwa unapata kama ni mzee ametamani kama ni Gertrude, haikuwa mambo mengi, wana time Gertrude akienda kuchota maji, ananyakuliwa in a very hostile way, anapelekwa nako, anakata violent years. Hangekata violent. So in the business world, does this kind of a thing happen? Yes. In the business world, you'll get, for example, some of the firms that have got issues, right? You get, for example, like 𝒂𝒂 having their own issues. They're not able to run, the directors there are not able to run that company absolutely. You know, one of the biggest killers of businesses in this world is management. Once you have, in this case here, useless managers up there, then automatically the company will not be a going concern. These are people who only think about themselves. So when you have this kind of a company, assuming it's 𝒂𝒂 that has got issues, fine, it has been taken to the drains financially by who? By directors. Now, of course, after some time, we realize that really there are people who are coming, developing interest to come and acquire this particular organization that is down. There must be people out there who are seeing a lot of potential, just like look at 𝒠𝒑 Sugar. I mean, how many people have come in this case here, ladies and gentlemen? How many people have come, ladies and gentlemen, here, right? Have come, ladies and gentlemen, here, expressing interest to acquire 𝒠𝒑 Sugar? Very many people, very many companies, including a company associated with who? Dangote. How I wish that firm could really acquire 𝒠𝒑 Sugar. Things will really do what here? Change for good for 𝒠𝒑 Sugar. So go back to 𝒂𝒂. So 𝒂𝒂, for example, gets a company that wants to acquire it. This company, assume it is one of the biggest farms that we have in agricultural sector in Kenya here, that could be 𝒂𝒂𝒂. 𝒂𝒂𝒂 is a big British farm, very big. You can't even compare it to Del Monte, right? 𝒂𝒂𝒂 is being managed by East African Produce, big. So these guys here from out there, they know the importance of management and organizational structures. So they'll come and say, 𝒂𝒂𝒂, hey, we know already the problems that are bedeviling you guys. And we are here offering to come and acquire this farm. But as we acquire the farm, we are putting in very strict conditions that we would want, in this case here, to acquire the farm with everyone else, apart from management, whom we shall be able to give some golden handshakes, they go. But now remember, who are really holding onto this 𝒂𝒂𝒂, who have got the keys to the acquisition of 𝒂𝒂𝒂, it is the directors, it is the management. So once, in this case here, this potential investor comes with these kind of conditions, then the acquiree firm will target, or rather will automatically conclude that this investor is a hostile investor, is a bad investor. As much as we have been hit badly, we're on the ground here, there are investors we can never accept. As a good lady, I know, as a good lady, that's an example, not a lady. As a good lady, I know that there are some people I cannot accept for a husband. Just by the look of things, I can see their hostility. These are people who will not even respect my career in the future. In the future, 10, 20 years down the line, these are people who will raise their hands against me, which is very sad, isn't it? Right? They're hostile, they're violent. I'm able to see. Great. So once, in this case here, you have realized that this farm is a hostile organization, right? Then how will you defend yourselves from being acquired by such bad investors? Could you kindly give me those strategies? They are strategies of defending yourselves. They are called defensive tactics or strategies. I would want to hear this from you. Very fast, we're just listing them. I'll list all of them, like I've seen Poisson's Peel. Thank you very much. I've seen, ladies and gentlemen, White Knight strategy. You guys are bright. White Knight strategy. White Knight strategy. Thank you very much. White Knight strategy. I've seen the crown jewel. I've seen the crown jewel. Crown jewel. Crown jewel. I've seen the shark repellent. I only want 6 of them. The shark repellent. The shark repellent. Legal redress. Legal redress. Legal redress. Legal redress. Are those all? Legal redress. Legal redress. Golden parachute. Golden parachute. Golden parachute. Golden parachute. Pacman's defense. Pacman's defense. Pacman's defense. etc. 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 So like now, Edwin is giving us there a counter offer. Counter offer is this one here. This is the counter offer. Counter offer. Wala ambao mko mnacheza mchezo ile kidogo ya wanafunzi, watoto wadogo wale kitambo, kuna ile game. Hata it's very practical. When in this case here you have a predator, even if it's an animal, right? Chasing to really eat you up as a human being. I'm so sure tafika mahali atakane kwa kono mefinyo unasema, hey maze, here I must fight back. I must fight back. And in the process of trying to fight back, chances are this bad animal, the hostile predator, may easily run away, right? Ni kama paka. Unaona paka wakati anataka kula nyama, hata kama ni mkubwa namna gani, ujaribu kuifinya kabisa. That thing, if it counterattacks you, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. So fine, I'm a targeted company. I could be smaller, but it may reach a time, ladies and gentlemen, where I'll be forced in this case to say, hey, you are not the only one. In this case, it was about financial mass. I can also acquire you. I start buying your shares in the stock exchange. So I'm counter offering. I'm giving, in this case here, I'm showing interest in acquiring you. And once, of course, we realize that we are also capable of acquiring us, chances are we'll call ourselves here to a table and say, hey, let's stop this exercise. Remember the story of Equity Bank and Family Bank. Family Bank became so hostile to Equity Bank. Anytime in this case here, Equity Bank could open a good branch somewhere, what used to happen, ladies and gentlemen, is that Family Bank, just by the side there, could also open their branch. So go to 4 ways, go to wherever. You always get where Equity Bank is standing, Family Bank is next to it. So of course, Equity Bank managers are very bright. James Mwangi, very bright. They knew very well that this is war. And in war, if you can't defeat your competitors, what do? You join them. So they started buying shares of who? Of Family Bank. And then when Family Bank also realized that these guys are buying our shares, what do? They also went ahead to buy their shares of who? Equity Bank. So it was really a give and take. And then they realized that this thing is useless. Let's sit down and talk. So counter offer is a very serious thing. Hey, if you're a lady here, for example, in this case here, there is a potential person and you really don't want this person. He's been making, in this case here, some offers to you, right? Offers to you like this. Na umutaki kabisa. Wewe siku moja mwambie unataka kumuoa. Patie counter offer. Mwambie wewe ni msichana, unaambia potential husband, mwambie nataka kuoa kesho weekend and to marry you. That man will run away. And you see the concept is, you want him to run away. Why? Because you have already been able to see that this guy is hostile. You want him to run away. Yeah, that is it. So it's called counter offer. Yani akikuambia straight away, msichana akuja niambia nataka kuoa kesho. Straight away, hata kama it's a very bad thing, what will I read? HIV or some, huyu sasa namna gani? Right? International disaster. I've run away, I've left you in peace. Then we have the crown jewel. How does this apply? This is what I saw somebody calling divestiture, right? Here, we'll be able to identify. Of course, in this case here, there must be something that is good in me, which is making most of these guys here to really want to acquire me. There must be something that is so good with Mumia Sugar that we as Africans can't see. We as Kenyans cannot see. But other people from out there are able to see. I mean, that is a big giant which is on its knees, affecting the economy of the whole Western. And the company is so much endowed with a lot of resources like land. I mean, Mumia Sugar is a gem, right? So there must be something that is good within me. If you look at a company like Safaricom, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if we were to get people admiring Safaricom, they'll be admiring Safaricom mostly because of what? Because of M-Pesa. Because of M-Pesa. So then once you realize that there are so many people are trying to hit on you as Safaricom, and they're really looking at that crown. The crown is what is M-Pesa. What do? You simply remove the crown. You break down your company. Have Safaricom, the mother skeleton. And then we have, in this case here, M-Pesa as a different company. And then what do? If possible, this M-Pesa now, you try to even get new shareholders. So that when people are chasing Safaricom, as they come over here, they realize straight away that there is a problem. The crown is no longer there. And once they realize that the crown is no longer there, then automatically they will run away. You want to defend yourself. You want to defend yourself from a hostile predator. Like for those of us who read business dailies, like a Bible, I read business daily so much myself. You'll see nowadays there is that quite a big talk about split of Safaricom. There are people who are complaining that Safaricom's market capitalization is so high. You know, if you take the share price of Safaricom times the 40 billion shares it has in the market, that thing, the value is closer to, right, the budget of Kenya. Annual budget of Kenya, it's running into trillions. That even if you were to combine all these, like the 20 NSC farms together, EABL, whatever, put them together, their value cannot match what is Safaricom. And yet Safaricom doesn't have so much assets to show for that value, apart from being a very big innovation, right? You can't compare Safaricom to EABL asset-wise. You cannot. right? So there are people who are feeling that this Safaricom is really overvalued. And the only way out is to split the company into either 2 or even 3 components and then have those companies running separately for us to be able to have a manageable world here. But the thing is, there must be institutional investors out there who have started buying shares of Safaricom at the stock exchange. And of course, there is a feeling that once these institutional shareholders from abroad there come and hijack Safaricom, what will they do? They'll straight away send majority of directors to the board. And then, of course, they'll be able to change so many things over there. So basically, they would want to break the farm to run away from any hostile predators in future. So I hope that is clear. Crown Jewel, you look at this company of ours. What really do we have which will make these people here want us? And in my video, I gave you a very good example of this young lady A, who in this case here has seen that really B, who by a look of things, you can look at this man, see that man has a very big head. Going to become hostile, right? So you look at this man who has even proposed to my parents, right? So how do I run away from this man? It's very easy. This white knight. Unaangalia anapenda nini sana. Ukirealize huyu jamaa anapenda, for example, nywele. What do? Unaamuka tu asubuhi mapema Saturday. Saturday ni mzuri sana. Mapema kabisa. Unatafuta kinyozi town. Unanyoa Jordan. Msichana unanyoa Jordan. Ule mwanaume akija akiona kona saba kama hizi zangu na anatoroka. In the process ulikuwa ukitaka huyu jamaa aende zake jameni. Anaenda namna hiyo. So this is very important. Very important. It's called crown. What is the crown? What is making this gentleman here to be attracted to me? Remove that crown, the guy disappears. That is what you want. You don't want to be taken over by a hostile what here? Husbandee, like that. Now, from there, ladies and gentlemen, we have the shark repellent. Shark repellent, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we introduce what we call a supermajority clause. Supermajority amendment clause in the Articles of Association. We introduce what we call a supermajority amendment clause. We say, for example, we as Safaricom to be acquired by any single firm. What we don't want is to be acquired by single firms, by single investors. For us to be acquired, for example, by a single investor, then we must sit down, at least 90% of us, to pass a resolution. 90% of Safaricom shareholders, that is a very high threshold. That automatically, in this case here, is what we call a shark what here? A shark repellent. Basically, you are creating barriers to being acquired. You'll never be acquired. 90%, that's a very big threshold. So even for a lady, you can easily introduce this and tell this gentleman of yours who wants to acquire you, and you have seen that this guy is not going to be very good in the future. You know, ladies are able to see very far. They have a very strong sixth sense. Once you realize these things will not work, and maybe we'll call introductions up and pale, right? Now, this will not work. You can also decide to employ this. Unamwambia sasa ndio mimi naweza kukuoa, lazima nyanya yangu akubali, cousins wangu wote wakubali, lazima nani akubali. Those guys will never accept. Most of these people ukienda kuleta hata idea kwamba unataka kuoa huyu, relatives wako inakuwa international, ni ngumu sana ku sell the idea for them to buy into that particular. So once in this case you introduce this kind of majority amendment, majority getting approval from majority, then automatically you will be repelling against this person. You'll be repelling against this person. Legal redress, I don't have really to explain so much about this. Under legal redress here, we basically invoke competition laws. And they say, hey, if I'm acquired by this organization, then automatically this acquirer, the predator, will become a monopoly. The government of Kenya does not. The government of Kenya does not want monopolies. Monopolies kill countries. And that is why, like when you was leaving Kenya, remember you was to be acquired by Safaricom. You was to be acquired by Safaricom, but they could not. Because anytime Safaricom wanted to acquire you, Airtel could rush to court. On which basis? Competition laws, that this company wants to become what here? A monopoly. When you was now leaving Kenya completely, what happened? They had to have like the masts being bought by Safaricom. And then there is one company that was cheated. They looked at the assets. There is one company which was cheated and bought subscribers of you. That is the asset it saw, which was good to buy. It was cheated. Are you able to remember that story? Are you able to remember that story? Are you able to remember that story? Of you. You people don't read Business Daily, and I want you guys to become CEOs. Which CEO really watches Channel O? Is there a CEO who watches Channel O? JZ, eh? So legal redress, very, very important. Legal redress, very important, very important, very important. Hii ni kitu ya maana sana. Legal redress sio mchezo sana. Hii una keep away potential husband. Una keep away potential husband. Assuming in this case here, for example, Mutua hakuwa amefanya divorce vizuri na bibi wake wa kwanza. All it needs to keep Mutua very far away from this young lady ni watu waende waseme bigamy, right? Now the guy will be put very far away by the courts. Legal redress, very, very important. Legal redress. If I don't want you, I can always get even a court order. A court order, you have to stay away from me like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important one. This one here, white knight strategy. Now, for those of you who follow football and these English things here and there, you know that if you do something which is extraordinary, then you'll be knighted by the queen. And when you are knighted by the queen, if you do something which is extraordinary, you shall be knighted by the queen. And once you are knighted by the queen, you become Sir, like Sir Alex Ferguson. You no longer be called Mr. Sir is so superior even than professor. Like in Kenya, some of the athletes that we have in Kenya here, they really fall in this category. But of course, we don't know how to market ourselves. If you knew how to market ourselves, like this guy who was able to, the Ineos gentleman, that guy should be going by this title. He deserves it. Because whatever he did, the whole world was watching him. And he was able, in this case here, to put away all those eyesights. It was global, And he was able to finish whatever. So he is supposed to be going by the term Sir like that. So if you do something which is extraordinary, straight away, you should be called Sir so and so. You are knighted. What I do not know is, what if we have some ladies here? Of course, we have ladies also who do extraordinary things. So if you do some extraordinary thing and you are a lady, and then you are knighted by the Queen of England, Her Majesty, your name, as they call men, sir, what name will they give to this good lady? Ma'am, madam, that is even degrading. Lady. Madam Boss, no. You guys go and do research there. Now, that is the first knighted. Then there is knight for a devil. Knight for a devil. There is another meaning of knight for what here? A devil. So now we have got two types of devils. We have in this case here a black devil. A black devil, this must be so bad. And then we have a white devil. White devil is quite accommodative. Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, could you kindly advise us here? If, for example, it's push that has become shove, we've been pushed to the wall that you must be married. Now you've got no way out. You must be married. Who would you rather marry you, the black devil or the white devil? You Betty, black asikuone. Betty wewe sasa, Betty asema black. Black ni mbaya. Huyu atakumaliza. It has to be the white devil. White devil. The same case, ladies and gentlemen, with these companies. These companies, when they realize that, hey, we have this Dangote farm that is coming to acquire me as Mumias, and because really I'm down financially and I must be acquired, then the very best is to look for, of course, I never wanted to be married at all. But because now I'm really pushed, you ladies know at times there are circumstances that even if you don't want to get married, there are those circumstances that will push you to get married, including your neighbors from home. When you go home, like over Christmas, like now this December, there are guys from this street to this other street that always will be keeping on asking you so many questions. Those are some of the issues that will make you truly consider getting married, right? So if we have been pushed 100% to get married, then in this case here, you would rather look for somebody who is a bit better. All of them, as they call us, but men are what devils. But there must be some white devil somewhere. There must be some white smoke somewhere. So the same case, ladies and gentlemen, with this company. So Mumias will say, Dangote is so black for us. They are coming and putting these bad conditions. That, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, ladies and gentlemen, that we must have all the managers going. No. Then because you must be married, because you must be acquired, let's get the white devil. We look at all the suitors that we have. Who is a little bit white? Who is a little bit better? The one who is a little bit better is the white devil, And honestly speaking, as a lady, so you've got two gentlemen here. A and B. B was so aggressively pursuing you. Even gone to your parents, spoken to most of your people like this, and then you realize that, hey, I don't want. So could you say, because I have to be married, then let me go for A. Ukienda for A, ushafunga ndoa. Huyu B, atakutafuta tena ushafunga ndoa. Ushafunga ndoa na A. Si ushajidefend kutoka kwa B. Hata dawa hawezi. Hata kija na dawa. Sasa unajua ushafanya harusi na A. Ushaenda kwa white knight. So B sasa ni ajipatie shughuli, atafute wake. So when they talk of white knight, ladies and gentlemen, always remember that white knight strategy, we are going for, in this case here, an acquirer. Who in this case here is a bit better as opposed to the hostile predator. As opposed to the hostile predator. So I hope that is okay. Then the other one, of course, there is this other video which I had sent you, ladies and gentlemen, earlier on. I'll again resend it to you. Poison pill, very easy. Poison pill, I'll basically make myself unsuitable by doing crazy things. Poison pill, I make myself unsuitable by doing crazy things. And the craziest thing you can ever do is, in this case here, to acquire, borrow heavily. This is the biggest poison you can swallow to make yourself unpopular before very many potential husbands. You can imagine I'm coming to you, Penina, nakwambia oye, wacha nikuoe. Wewe unasema utaniweza? Nakuuliza kwa nini? Unaniambia niko na loan ya 30 million. Ati kwanza lazima unisaidie kulipa hii loan. Nitatoroka. When ni poison, is a disaster. Poison pill is a disaster. You're a disaster. Borrow heavily. You borrow heavily. You know, these potential predators, they fear high gearing. Once I acquire a farm that has got high debt, my gearing level will go very high. And if gearing level goes beyond 50%, above 50%, then in future, even as a group of companies, I will not be able to borrow. So we fear companies that are what here having this pill, which is poisonous, which will really increase the total debt level, So is there any that I haven't explained here? Yes, we have the golden parachute. Is there anybody who has ever seen a parachute? Is there anybody who has ever seen a parachute in their lifetimes? What is a parachute? What's a parachute? What's a parachute? What is a parachute? What's a parachute? What's a parachute? Yani kwa Kiswahili nasema ni miavuli, right? Ile ya wanajeshi. Naona ile miavuli ya wanajeshi. Yes, used by para battalion Green Berets. These guys, are they found in Gilgil? Where is their camp? Is it in Gilgil? Dixon seems to be knowing so much. Perhaps he's a soldier. There's a language once I see. No. Nanyuki, we have 10 engineers. We have 𝒂𝐁. We have 4th Brigade. Remember, immediately after my high school, I also got an opportunity to join the army. But that's a very bad story, sad story. Very sad story, because I could not even last there for a month. I'll be able to explain to you what happened, but not today. Not today. And I thank God I never joined. But those guys that we joined together with, now it's a note zangu, most of them now, they are colonels, way up there, right? I'm so sure if I was there, by now I would be very senior, maybe a brigadier, because of my age and my zeal, right? Major, no, major would be quite, major is a small person, 32, 33, right? Right? So wale jamaa wanapoenda kule juu, kabisa, wanaruka na miavuli, hapa chini na fry, it's quite a tough thing. So when we talk of golden parachute, what we are saying is that we shall have some conditions ourselves, where we tell this potential predator company, the company which is coming to acquire us, we are telling this company, ladies and gentlemen, that should you acquire us, each of the managers must go home with a golden parachute, not a normal parachute. Si parachute ya majuala hii imewekwa karatasi tu hivi ama umbrella ya kawaida. It has to be a golden parachute. Like, give each director of this company, as we leave this company for you, give each director like 100 million Kenya shillings. That is a golden handshake, right? So, of course, there is no predator who will accept that. Why? Because once they accept that, they are going to suffer financially from the word go. Look at, for example, what happened to some IBC. Was it IBC like kitambo kwa namna gani? Kina Hassan. Walipata sawa pesa mingi sana. That was a golden parachute. Right? Unaambiwa uachilia, upatiwe hii, uruke. So when I make this kind of a condition and of course demand, then automatically it means that for any potential suitor to come and afford this particular acquisition, it will be almost impossible. So I'll be defending myself against what here? Against acquisition. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a good deal that even most of our ladies here could decide to use. If you feel that this gentleman is getting too much and really you don't want him, when you go back home, when they come for dowry negotiations, tell them to pay 5 million. 5 million, right? You know the best. Msichana ataka kwele nyumba na golden parachute akienda, lakini yule jamaa akikubali ataumia sana, because kijana alikuwa amemwambia last time, huyu kijana mwenye yako 27 years na hati ametoa 5 kwa dowry peke yake, na mtu ametoa pesa kama hii, lazima umforce afanye harusi ya 5 kumaanisha yeye from the word go amelipa milioni ngapi? Milioni 10. Itakuwa ni shida sana. Hata manage, hata toroka, hata mimi nikisikia milioni 5. You know, and this is one of the reasons I told you which kills what here? Acquisitions, which kills mergers, which kills marriages. The moment I've paid more than 5 million, ladies and gentlemen, say 5 million shillings as dowry, you know, I will automatically increase my expectations, over optimism. Sasa tumelipa $5,000,000. Msichana mwenyewe pia ametoka university jana na hajakuwa hata akijihusisha na mambo mengi sana. So siku ya kwanza amekuja kwa nyumba namna hii, anapika ugali, baadaye itoke ugali inatoka uji. Na nimelipa $5,000,000 oye mama. International. So hiyo ndio vitu ambavyo hakuna haja. Wacha tuanze ili marriage ndogo, watu waanze mama pole. Hapana lipisha mtu pesa kama hiyo mingi. International disaster. So ladies and gentlemen, from there we go to something very important, financing of acquisitions. Financing of acquisitions. How do we finance acquisitions? 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 Can somebody help me there? Oh, the board is not okay. Are you able to see my board really? Are you able to see my board? Are you able to see my board? Yes. Great. Thank you very much. So it must be your internet. Thank you very much. So financing of acquisitions, ladies and gentlemen, number one, we could use in this case here, cash option. Where we simply pay the shareholders of target company, where we pay the shareholders of the target company for the shares we acquire. Okay. So that's cash option. That's number one. Number two, we could also use what we call a shares option. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, under shares option, we will give shareholders of the target company shares of the predator company. So then this will become a share to share exchange. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, we could provide what we call the seller notes. Or seller bonds. Seller bonds. And this is very popular. For those of you who would want to become acquisitions experts, mergers and acquisition experts, I would want you to be using this. Right? These are very, very powerful model that I've been reading, which is very much popular in Europe, very popular. Why? Because if, for example, you want to raise money to acquire a company and they issue bonds outside here, there are very few people who will be able to have faith in your exercise. People will fear the company you're going to acquire. But you see, if the bonds we are talking about are going to be acquired, I want to make this very clear. And for me to make it very clear, first of all, I would want to rub the board. And for me to rub the board, I would want you guys to confirm that you've been able to write up to here. There's something I have to explain here. So can I rub? Thank you very much. I can see one no. So we give them 1 minute. 1 minute, no problem. Only 1 minute. 1 minute. The concept of the seller notes. You have seen we are only giving them 2 minutes actually, up to 9. You can use those 2 minutes here to stretch a little bit, drink your water. If you have some skipping rope, you skip like 20 times. Must make yourselves active. This is not a physical classroom. military life is not the very best. Military life is very, very hard. You know, those guys will come and, for example, when you do some small problem, maybe you have not made your bed to their expectations. You know, bed ya askari lazima isimame. Boot zake lazima. So what they do, wanakubari alive, wanakufikisha mchanga. Wale mchanga moto, hey, sicheza na hiyo maisha hiyo. Kiona mtu amekuwa askari amehitimu, huyo mtu mpigie salute kabisa. International disaster. Ukiona mtu amekuwa askari kwanza cadet, wachana nyingine ya 6 months, cadet, huyo mtu simchezee. And that's why I really sympathize with them. Most of them are so automatically, once we have A giving B shareholders money, isn't that cash? They have given out cash. These guys have gone. So A has paid cash like that. A has paid cash to shareholders of B, right? And that is it. So remember, if it's acquisition, once we pay cash, this company will automatically cease from being there. So the entire company will be owned by who? By A. Basically, it is A plus B, and then B disappeared. Then we have A, which is what here, bigger, like that. Okay, so we have the seller notes. The seller notes. So under seller notes, what do we have under seller notes? So we have A, we have B. B wants to sell their shares. The only company they are getting here is A, but A is telling B that we don't have money to give you people today. We don't have money to give you people today. So allow us enter an agreement with the current shareholders of B. And they give you guys what we call promissory notes. Promissory note, we promise to pay you at the end of the year. We promise to pay you at the end of the year. So basically, we are giving you these notes here. These notes are the same as what here? Bonds. Remember, bonds and notes are quite different because bonds are long-term. These guys may not accept, for example, you to give them promises to pay them in the next 2 years. No, it should be a short-term thing. You guys take over the business, reorganize yourselves, maybe in 3-4 months, give us our money, right? Give us our money. So basically here is where we are giving promissory notes to shareholders. So basically we are getting a loan from shareholders of B. So it's a short-term loan. It's a short-term loan. It's a short-term loan from shareholders of the targeted company. Shareholders of the targeted company. Seller notes. Seller notes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me, I'll go to the next concept, which is the bonds. I think it's number 4. So bonds, we are saying here that the predator company, the investor company can issue special bonds purely for purposes of what here? For purposes of financing the acquisition. For purposes of financing the acquisition. For purpose of financing the acquisition. For purpose of financing the acquisition. The same case with the number 5, the concept of preference shares. Preference shares. So here we shall issue preference shares preference shares to raise acquisition funds. To raise the acquisition funds. To raise the acquisition funds. And remember, when you are issuing these preference shares, you will get some of the shareholders of the targeted company saying, hey, we don't want cash. As you're issuing these preference shares out there, allow us also to give you what here our shares in exchange for what here your preference shares. The same case with the bonds. Other people will tell you, no, our shares, we don't want cash. Let's exchange our own shares with your debt instruments. We are comfortable that way, right? And then, of course, somebody tells me to go back to the seller notes. Seller notes, who are selling the shares? The people who are selling the shares in this case here are shares of the targeted company, are shareholders of the targeted company. So then what do? You know, a note, these are promissory notes. So we acquire shares of the targeted company, right, on credit. So basically we are acquiring shares of targeted company on credit. And this credit has to be what here? Has to be short-term. Short-term. It has to be short-term, like that. Great. So please tell me whether I could rub this very fast. Great.